there is a certain type of individual currently navigating the wreckage of a destructive relationship, or perhaps they've just stepped out of the line of fire who possesses a hidden advantage they haven't even noticed yet. They are quietly forging an internal shield that will eventually make them bulletproof to manipulation. When we peel back the layers of the human mind to see what happens during prolonged exposure to a toxic person, we find the hidden blueprint that dictates who stays trapped and who evolves. If you found your way to this video, your presence here isn't an accident, it's an indication that your own evolution has already begun. For the longest time, the scientific community focused almost exclusively on how people fall apart. We have mountains of data on trauma, nervous breakdowns, and the crushing weight of despair. However, a new wave of psychological inquiry has shifted the lens. Experts are now obsessed with a different phenomenon: the individuals who emerge from the fire not just intact, but fundamentally upgraded. This isn't just about getting through it, it's a concept known as post-traumatic growth. And it's a far cry from the silver lining cliches you've heard before. Here at Quiet Pressure Sketchbook, we believe understanding this process is the first step toward reclaiming your power. To understand the rebirth, we have to look at the damage. A toxic dynamic isn't just a series of bad arguments. It is a neurological siege. Whether it's a partner, a parent, or a colleague, your body treats their manipulation like a physical threat. Data suggests that the persistent stress of being gaslit or belittled keeps your cortisol levels in a state of permanent red alert. Similar to what a soldier experiences on a front line, your primitive brain doesn't distinguish between a verbal predator and a physical one. This leads to the classic symptoms: the fog of brain, the racing heart, the inability to sleep, and a focus that is shattered into 1,000 pieces. These aren't signs that you are weak. They are biological proof that your survival instincts are working overtime. Research published by Springer highlights that the fallout from these relationships often manifests physically: chronic fatigue, migraines, and a decimated immune system. Your body is essentially pulling the fire alarm because it knows you're in danger. But this is where the narrative shifts from tragedy to something quite spectacular. Psychology shows us that the aftermath of this collapse is where the most profound work begins. Researchers like Richard Tedeschi have found that a massive portion of survivors, somewhere between 1/2 and 2/3, don't just return to their old selves, they undergo a metamorphosis. We often talk about resilience, which is the ability to snap back to your original shape. But what we're exploring today on Quiet Pressure Sketchbook is the process of being shattered so thoroughly that your original shape no longer exists. When your worldview is leveled, you are forced to build a new one from the ground up. And frequently the structure you build from those ruins is more fortified and more authentic than the one you lost. There is a strange irony in this healing process. Those who feel the most broken often have the highest potential for this massive shift. If the experience only grazed you, you might just move on. But if it decimated your sense of trust and safety, you are standing in a space where total reconstruction is possible. Being in the middle of the wreckage is actually the most potent moment for change you will ever encounter. Now let me be clear, this isn't some everything happens for a reason platitude. Post-traumatic growth doesn't mean the pain vanishes. You can be evolving and hurting at the exact same moment. It's possible to carry the scars of PTSD while simultaneously experiencing a profound expansion of your soul. Your mind is capable of holding both the reality of the damage and the reality of the growth. Science points to 5 specific areas where this evolution takes root. First, there's a renewed reverence for life. The sun looks different when you've spent years in the dark. Second, your social circle changes. You lose the appetite for shallow connections and gravitate toward genuine depth. Third, you tap into a reservoir of grit you never knew you had, a quiet realization that if you survive that storm, you can handle any weather. Fourth, new paths appear because your old boundaries no longer limit your vision. And fifth, your personal philosophy crystallizes. You finally know exactly what you stand for. It's important to remember that this isn't a race or a moral requirement. Healing isn't linear, and if you're still flinching at loud noises or struggling with trust, that doesn't mean you've failed. The survivors who truly transform usually reach a cellular breaking point, a moment where the cost of being diminished simply becomes too high to pay. At that point, boundaries aren't just a suggestion from a book, they become a biological necessity for survival. This shift involves active processing, what researchers call deliberate rumination. Instead of letting the trauma haunt you in circles, you begin to consciously dissect it. You stop asking, why did they do this? And start asking, who am I becoming because I survived it? This is the core mission of Quiet Pressure Sketchbook. Turning that internal pressure into a masterpiece of self-awareness. You are not damaged goods, your hyper-vigilance and your found pickiness about who gets your energy are actually the sophisticated defense systems your brain built to keep you safe. That isn't trauma talking, that's wisdom that you earned the hard way. The marks left behind aren't just scars, they are the coordinates on a map that ensure you never wander back into the wilderness again. Human beings are designed to find meaning in the mess. We are adaptive, gritty, and capable of spectacular turnarounds. You don't owe anyone a success story, and your timeline is yours alone. But if you are still here, still breathing, and still trying to define your own worth, you are currently in the middle of a neurological revolution. You are learning the vital difference between being controlled and being connected. You are discovering that the places where you were broken can with time become the most unyielding parts of your character. This isn't a myth, it's the reality of your own resilient mind. If this perspective helped you see your journey in a new light, I'd love for you to stay a part of this community by subscribing. And if you're ready to dive even deeper into these psychological transformations, consider supporting our work by becoming a channel member.